Welcome back to Consumer Behavior. This session is on Chapter 11, Social and Cultural Behavior. As you can see from this graphic here, the Mardi Gras celebration in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, is certainly an example of a cultural influence on consumer behavior. Social and cultural identity. You have social identity, family influences, ethnicity and race influences, and religious and political beliefs. These all come together to form a consumer's social and cultural identity. The dynamics of social identity. As you can see, the wheel on the right, you have the family, the generation groups, which would be considered the extended family if you got more than two. And that is certainly something that influences quite a bit. Just a look from your grandmother or a eye roll from a daughter or a young sister or a niece or nephew. And it says it all, and it influences your decisions. Religion and politics, of course, both are very powerful influences on consumer behavior. What we wear, what we buy, what we drive, where we go to dinner, things of that places. Certain places influence us. Ethnicity and race, here again, very powerful influences in both of those categories, ethnicity and race, which we're going to get into in a minute. Threats to social identity. And these threats are coming every day. Are you with me or not? In-group biases, maybe your peer group. Some people don't agree with something that's happening, and some might. Social dominance bias in a social setting, a social group that you might be in. There's always somebody who's trying to dominate and become the expert on a topic or expert on what to do or where to go. And it doesn't have to be the same person. It can be a different person for different occasions. But that is definitely an influence, as sometimes other people in the group throw their hands up and say, yeah, fine, let's go. Identity synergy. There's the no place like home syndrome, intersectionality, societal consequences of identity-based treatments. These are all threats to a person's social identity. Let's start with the family. The nuclear family is being replaced by the nuclear family replaces extended family. That is a shift towards a smaller, more immediate family unit with less involvement from wider family members. The nuclear family being husband, wife, children, where the extended family comes into play when you have 3 or more generations living in one place. And that is beginning to get broken up as people move away, move down to the suburb. They don't see each other as much. Even though they may connect on Facebook and some of the social media, maybe some text messages, it's different. It's different than when every Sunday families were getting together at somebody's house and three generations, the grandparents, the kids, and the parent, the sons and daughters of the grandparents would all be there. And family also includes voluntary. There's a lot of voluntary childless families. They just decide not to have kids for whatever reasons they have. It's their choice, but it's definitely a trend. Dinks, dual income, no kids, kind of plays into the voluntary childless families. Cohabitation, where people are not even not married, they're just cohabitating, and that is different than the traditional family, of course. Boomerang kids coming back after college, staying for a while. And then, of course, we have the sandwich generation, which actually is a sandwich generation. So I'll put an S on the end of that because that is where uh, many consumers are doing the best they can to provide care for a mother or grandparent or father, a parent or grandparent, as well as raising their own kids. And that is the sandwich they're in between, raising their kids and taking care of either parents or grandparents. And these all have impacts on our social and cultural identity. Types of parenting. You get restrictive on the top, permissive on the bottom, hostile and warm. I'm sure we all know parents who fall into one of these categories. What's right, what's wrong, who knows, depending on situations and what have you, but there are definitely styles that you can tell families align with. Let's not forget about the extended family, pets. 70% of US households own a pet. Americans spend 100 plus billion per year on pet food, toys, and other supplies. 100, over $100 billion. A lot of money. But if you own a pet, you know why. It is just the unconditional love, and they want to make the pet happy and have fun, as well as um, it brings people joy to see the pets being happy. And actually, there is research out there that shows owning a dog. Anyway, I've not seen research about cats or anything else. Owning a dog will lower your stress and add people tend to live longer. That's the summary of it. I'm sure there's much more in-depth details to it, but so anyway, they're extended family. Age and generations, teenagers, tweens, and then we have the silver wave. Of course, the teenagers, they want autonomy, rebellion against conformity, always have, always will. Idealism versus pragmatism, narcissism versus intimacy, always have, always will. um, just get used to it as they people move through their teenage years. Tweens, kids between ages 8 and 14. The tweens are becoming pretty heavy influencers now in what their parents are buying. All the TikTok things and all the influencers that these tweens are seeing, and they're leaning on their parents. Hey, let's buy this, buy that. Um, Big influencers. Then we have the silver wave. During 2024, about 11,200 Americans turned 65 years old each day, according to Empower. It's a record high. 11,200 Americans turned 65 each day. Silver wave is coming. It's here. It's the fastest growing age group on Earth, 700 million now, 2 billion by mid-century. The silver wave are silver spenders. Dashboard data shows on average, people in their 60s shell out about $5,400 monthly, roughly 18% more than the general population. They will spend. Let's look at the lineup of generations. Um, Going back to the 1920s, interbellum generation, the silent generation, war baby generation. Then you had the baby boom generation. Then that was followed by Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha. And I think the next one coming is called Gen Next. I have to look up on that, but anyway, you look at the lineup of generations, and each one has a different mindset, different patterns of consumption, different ways they handle their money. Uh, I would say somewhere between Gen X, or actually boomers, I think I would say boomers is when credit cards really took hold. Um, Gen X, millennials, then you have Gen Z, which is a bit frugal, but it's just interesting to see the different patterns uh, of each one of these consumer groups. Four key age groups: baby boomer, Gen X, Gen Y, millennials, and Gen Z. Context, you have the baby boomers, which were the post-war, many babies born right after World War II. Gen X, political transition, capitalism, and meritocracy dominate. Um, Boy, isn't that the truth? With the political transition, there's just all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Um, when Gen X was growing up, Gen Y, millennials, globalization, economic stability, emergence of the internet. That shook things up, didn't it? Gen Z, mobility and multiple realities, social networks, digital narratives. Gen Z is the first generation that literally was growing up with the internet from the time they were born. Behvior, idealism, revolutionary collectivists. Gen X, materialism, competitive, individualistic. Gen Y, Gen Z, consumption, ideology, vinyl and movies. That's the boomers. Status, brands and cars, Gen X. Experience, festivals and travel. Look how it shifts from tangible items with the vinyl and the brands and the cars and luxury articles to Gen Y, which is they will for experiences. They want to go to the festivals. They want to travel to different places and just get a nice experience of being someplace else. Gen Z, the uniqueness, more liquid sharing economy, and they're looking for ethical things when they consume. Gen Z, born in the late 1990s to early 2000s, most diverse generation, digital natives, which is what I mentioned. They were born with the internet available. Gen Y, also known as millennials and echo boomers, make up about 1/4 of the US population. They spend 170 billion a year, grew up with computers in their homes and in a 500 channel TV universe. But it's a lot of stimulus. The computers and the 500 channels. That was the beginning of it with Gen Y. Gen X, subculture of 46 million Americans born between 65, 85. Advertisers fell all over themselves to create messages that would not turn off Gen X. Many are responsible for many culture changing products and companies. It was a very refined, Gen X was very refined subculture that would do their protesting and get their messages out in somewhat of a civil way. And companies responded because one of the things they did was they just quit buying things. And they would switch brands and tell all their friends to switch brands. Boomers and seniors, two subgroups. Leading edge boomers, born between 46 and 55. Trailing edge, which was between 56 and 64. And the big difference is 1946 to 1955 is right at the end of World War II. Whole different mentality. The United States was just going crazy manufacturing steel and everything under the sun, cars. Definitely the golden age of manufacturing right there. Further on, you get into the trailing edge boomers, 56 to 64. It's starting to become a shift. Technology is starting to come into play. Factory jobs are not, I won't say being replaced, but there's much more technology coming in and people are starting to see where the world is going. All of the boomers and seniors are active and physically fit. I still say that goes back to 60s and 70s when um, gym classes, and it was in the schools. It was just a requirement that you had a half hour every day, even if it was just walking outside in the playground. Um, it was very much more formalized, and it just stuck. And people just started doing things like that and staying physically fit. Currently in the peak earning years, yes, they are. They're starting to retire. Actually, there is a big one that is called the silver wave. There's a huge group of people getting ready to retire, which means they will have ample discretionary money to spend and looking for places to spend it. Ethical and racial identities. As of 2015, most U.S. babies born will be non-Caucasian. As 10 years ago, when it crossed that line. Most babies born are non-Caucasian. By 2060, 1 in 3 Americans will identify as Hispanic. It's not too far off. The Asian population will double during this period, and by 2050, people who identify themselves as multiracial will make up almost 4% of the U.S. population. Seems low to me, but I'll go with it. A big group is the Hispanic Americans. Nearly 1 in 5 Americans is Hispanic. Hispanics are now the nation's second largest consumer market after white non-Hispanics. Hispanics account for 1.7 trillion in purchasing power. Primacy of family, but family structures are changing, but the Hispanics are very tight with the nuclear family, and many of them have the extended family with other generations around, and desire for greater economic stability and higher education. Religious identity. This definitely influences people. Certainly the big holidays, Christmas, Easter, um, some of the other big holidays, Rosh Hashanah, uh, Yom Kippur. These are things that really get people to consume, even if it's just for putting out a big meal or buying somebody a gift. People who are religious celebrate traditions and holidays through acts of consumption. I've been saying that for a long time. Christmas is a big consumption time of year, and all the retailers are trying to edge it a little bit closer to Halloween. Actually, now it's, I would say, Labor Day is when all the Christmas items start to show up. But religion still is a very big impact on consumer behavior. Here we have there's something called Prism, and Prism is a fantastic source for segmenting different segments of the population and putting out descriptions of they've got countless number of clusters, they call them. Here's just an example, and Prism is something that's available at many libraries. You can go to the library websites and access Prism. For example, segment number 4 of the youth-oriented Prism clusters, young digeriti, tech-savvy consumers who live in trendy urban neighborhoods filled with fitness clubs, boutiques, and microbreweries. Tech-savvy, well, I've heard many things about Grand Rapids and some of their neighborhoods. Could that be Midtown, filled with fitness clubs, boutiques? Well, I guess I don't. There could be boutiques in Midtown and microbreweries. Much more likely to shop at Bloomingdale's, travel to Asia, read Dwell, watch independent film channel, drive an Audi A3. Now let's match that up against segment number 24, up and comers, same youth oriented, same age group. A transition segment for young middle-class singles before they marry and establish families, primarily live in mid-sized cities and include many recent college graduates who are into athletic activities, technology, and nightlife. Well, that makes sense. Athletic activities could be, there's a lot of groups, there's flag football group. I mean, I call them bar leagues. There's soccer barleys, there's social groups will have leagues of athletic activities to have fun. And then you, after the game or competition or whatever it is, you hit a different bar every week or something. But that's the up and comers. Much more likely to order from Priceline, travel to South America, read Cigar Aficionado, watch South Park, and drive a Nissan Ultimate, a Nissan Ultima hybrid. So here's clusters of people in similar age group, but you look at the difference. One is going to drive an Audi, one's going to drive a Nissan, one's going to read Dwell, one's going to read Cigar Aficionado, the independent film channel versus South Park. Prism is just one of the sources that provides profile information for almost every cluster of consumer available, and which is really falls on the heels of the project you just did on the personas and how important it is. I mean, it's a big money industry creating persona. These are abbreviated personas. They tell the story of a group of people that marketers will use to help the marketer get their arms around. Okay, who are these people? What do they do? What motivates them? In order to effectively market to these people. So that's it for chapter 11. The assignments for this session: read chapter 11, chapter 12, complete quizzes for chapter 11 and chapter 12 in Canvas. They're due on Monday, February 24th. That is it. I'll talk to you soon. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. It's in the Canvas profile, and I will certainly respond as soon as possible. Thank you.